I'm Rose McDougall from Maniwaki. Well, I had, my two sisters are much older than I, and when they got out of school in grade 7, we moved away from, we were living near the band office, and we moved to, when you haven't toured Reserve, we lived in Bidby, it's called Bidby Lake, we were there. But I was too young to go to school, so we stayed there, and then when I became of age to go to school, I had homeschooled. My mother I did grade 7. Well, I failed my grade 7.
Sure.
And then when I went back the second year to repeat my grade 7, then I did my 1-year high school, like at the convent. And then after that, I went to Ottawa, and years later, I went back to night school to get my bookkeeping. Well, we learned just mostly because we all spoke in Indian, you know, before we started school. So we were taught, some of us, well, like I said, myself, I spoke English because we were taught English at home, you know, before we started school. But most of the kids had, I guess, a problem to speak the language. But all we had was, you learned your math, history. Well, first of all, they taught us how to read, or ABCs and how to read. And then you had different grades, different books, and that's all. They knew that we didn't speak English, you know, like it's a 6-year-old comes to school and their parents don't speak that much English. Well, they never had any objections to us speaking, you know. The only time that my teacher told us, that now that you've learned to speak English at home so you'll learn faster. They never said don't, you know, like I believe the residential schools were like that, you know, you couldn't speak Indian, you couldn't speak, practice your culture or whatever, you know. And the being Algonquin and to be, like I'm part Algonquin, I'm part French, and I'm part Scottish, and you know. So it really doesn't matter to me what nationality I am, you know, because I mean there's the things, the differences with me and with other kids that are full-blooded Indian. You know, they were like more or less put down, but we mingle with the people in town, you know. And then, like I say, being brought up in two cultures, because my grandfather was French on my mother's side, so we did both cultures, you know. And we spoke 3 languages at home. And to go in town, I guess we were not as noticeable as you would from, let's say, Rabbit Lake. You know, any reserve that, you know, you see people that are full-blooded Indian, they're noticeable, you know. And then it's like Scottish people, you can't tell them apart. So we didn't really have much problem to mingle with the townspeople. And when we went to school in town, you know, I mean, quite a few kids that didn't want to hang around with us, you know. I mean, we knew we were from the reserve, you know. There was a few, but not, I don't find it was that much, you know. So I don't really find there was any difference of where I lived, or what my family was, or what culture I followed, you know. That didn't make any difference, you know. Just like I was saying, I said they were asking me when I was working at Warner's. This is Warner's at where they make foundation garments. So I worked there for a while. Excuse me. And then the girl asked me one time. She said, "How come you dress like that?" I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Come on, dress like this, you know." Of course, she said, how come you don't wear your buckskin outfit?" I never wore a buckskin outfit in my life, you know. So this is what she taught how the Indians were. And this was in the 60s and 70s. Mm-hmm. I don't know. But then, like I say, if I went someplace else, I wouldn't know the culture. So that doesn't really, it doesn't bother me. It didn't bother me whatever they said, you know. My grandfather was a chief at one time, and my dad was a counselor, and so was my brother-in-law. But when we were young, when my grandparents were living, they more or less like taught us how to survive, you know. Like my grandmother taught us how to knit and sew and, you know, how to cook and all of this. And always, of course, we were always taught to respect your elders was always, you know, the thing. And we had to look after ourselves, and our parents were not around. And then my grandmother taught us, well, not really me, but my mom, to go in the bush and get some kind of roots and medicine, you know, so all of this. And then my grandfather, well, taught you how to chop wood, you know, that type of thing, and how to survive in the wintertime, you know, when my father wasn't around. Well, now I guess, now it's much different, but if you were to come to live on the reserve, if you've never been on a reserve, if you've never heard of the Indians, the Aboriginals, and then if you did try to survive on a reserve, they would show you how to look for food, how to grow things, and what you would use for medicine. You know, well, this is what the people will really want to know, and then this is how they teach people how to survive. It's like, what did that soup you had? It's partridge. And other girls were asking me, what's partridge? It's part quail, you know, the family. And well, they would teach you how to go looking for that, how to kill it, and how to clean it, and do all of this. And then the same one, let's say, to feed your family or yourself, to go look for kill moose and stuff like that. And even how to make fire, you know? And how to pitch up a tent, how to live in the tent in the wintertime, because there's a lot of Aboriginals that lived in the tent in the winter. Like I lived in the tent in the summertime. That's how we didn't have a home. And, for a time being, my dad sold a house and we were moving someplace else, so we lived in a tent. I mean, I'm sure it would be fun for some. I don't know. To me, it was no different if we went in town, because there was a lot of people. They were not first class. I mean, they were not rich people. Like, they were middle class. And then there was, of course, there were poverty as well in town, as there was on a reserve. But except on a reserve, we didn't realize. Like I was just telling your professor, I said, well, when I was young, I didn't even know I was poor. You know, I just thought I was. You know, you have food, you have clothes, you got all of this. So to me, that wasn't being poor, you know. But then the people later on classed us as the poor people, you know.